What about the Democratic establishment? Has it lent its support in any particular direction?
Well, I know that they favor Susan DelBene. The wealthy part of the Democratic Party do. But Darcy's getting a lot of support. Darshan is also getting support from the Democratic Party, but I think it's nominal.
But you didn't mention Laura Ruderman. She's not favored by the Democratic establishment.
She is getting some. David Spring mentioned the East King County Democrats are supporting her, and she's not getting from the Democratic Party, but she is getting from one of the organizations. There's the DCCC and the Democratic Governors. There's a whole bunch of Democratic organizations that do lend money to candidates.
But from a top-down basis, it's more DelBene and followed secondarily by Darcy.
The corporate Democrats like DelBene. They have a lot of power. They can elbow out the progressives that make them uncomfortable, and they can make, in a close race, they can make a difference.
Who's getting the union labor vote?
Well, DelBene is getting some union endorsements. I don't know what they are. It just said union. There are a lot of unions. The teachers groups like Laura, but I don't understand that because she is for the charter schools. So there's a lot of different groups in play. You really have to look at what the candidates say. You know, where do they want your education dollar? Do they want this state to come up from 45th to 35th or 2nd or whatever? What are they going to do to fight for education for our children?
It's interesting that DelBene picked up support from a Kirkland mayor and two council members.
They're pretty much,
they're all about business.
They're all about business. Let's have, more building, higher.
Increase that tax base.
Right, increase that tax base, which is kind of a myth because tax bases are always linked to services, and the residents end up footing the bill.
The so-called progressive candidate, Darcy, we hear the progressivism. How would you even define it? And is it for real? And what does it mean in terms of Darcy Berner and the other candidates?
Well, I think it depends. It should be linked to what you do. And Darcy says she's a progressive, but I haven't seen any. She apparently has one more member of the Progressive Caucus. That was what she was proudest of for her 2 years in Washington. But the Progressive Caucus has been ineffective. So if they have 86 instead of 85, is that going to make them more effective? Mm-hmm. Then you have someone like Darshan who has no record, but he has a very detailed plan of what he's going to do to change things.
Well, Darcy made a quip about there's too much over-representation of the 1% in Washington, D.C. already. Yeah. But we, as you're saying, we will get that from Darshan as well.
Yeah, definitely. And he will tell you exactly what he wants to do with it. He wants to repeal Citizens United, and he thinks that public funding is the way to go.
We're not hearing that from Darcy?
No. No, her statements are all very general. I'm sorry to say this, but I'm reminded of The Candidate, the film that Robert Redford did, where you have this, guy, he's going into politics and he's all fired up about what he's going to do to help the people, and the campaign people start to groom him and neutralize his statements into being very general, and that's what I'm getting from Darcy. Now, when I write her, she writes back more specifically, but her public statements are very general. You couldn't pin her down after she was elected to say, but you promised this. Mm-hmm. She said, no, I'll support it, I'll work for it, I'll fight for it. But there's nothing you can really pin her down on.
Brings up the American dream. A lot of people hope that it's not dead. But we have one candidate that's running that lives in a nearly $5 million home on Lake Washington waterfront. And we have other candidates that really have worked themselves up from bootstraps.
Susan has hit the capitalist lottery. The way our economy is structured, if you strike it rich, the sky's the limit. You can pile up as much wealth as you want, and you're not taxed. You're not. But
does that include even buying your own election?
Apparently, Senator Cantwell did that from 10 to 15 million of her own dollars. Now she raises money, but she bought in on the first one.
Yeah, because if you're not doing outreach to the citizens, then basically we can go there and say that you're basically self-funding, you're buying your election.
Yeah. And she is, she's really trying to neutralize that by touting her middle-class credentials. We really struggled. Well, she's from a large family, but airline pilots make good money, and I think apparently her father got his job back because she did go to Reed College.
They have the saying, when all is said and done, more is said than done. Is it even possible for someone who is elected in this district to go in and make Congress functional again, to give us this American dream, or at least some portion of it, where we can get jobs? Congress has been unable to provide jobs and control spending. That's its major purpose. The
two candidates that came to my door, I asked them that question. I asked Laura, what are you going to do about the gridlock and the corruption in Washington? She said, well, I'm no mastermind. I don't have all the answers, but somebody's got to take that seat. When I asked that to Darshan, he started listing the things he was going to do. He was going to build a strong progressive coalition. He was going to get the money out of politics, and exactly what he was going to do. So there's, someone that thinks they deserve to be there but can't really tell you why, and then another person that has a plan of action. So I don't think one person is going to change the landscape, but I think you want somebody who's going to go there and do their very best to do it.
Well, what I'm hearing from you is at least Darshan is telling us how he will represent us.
Exactly.
Some of the others are not.
Exactly. It's either very general or they're dodging the issue. I also think Susan has a problem with Microsoft pays almost no taxes to the state, and they could get a rebate on their federal taxes if they paid their state taxes, so it wouldn't affect their bottom line. And that's something that I think voters are very aware of, and I think that's going to hurt Susan.
Another real key issue for any elected that becomes our Congress member is civil justice. It looks like we're tending towards a totalitarian state in the making.
You're right. Here we have drones in Seattle. The last time I went to any demonstration, it was Homeland Security that was on the street instead of the Seattle cops. Doralee Rainey, who got pepper sprayed, is a hometown girl, and that picture went all across the country. We're also, the thing that's not being spoken about is global warming. It's the most challenging thing that we face, and none of the candidates, except Darshan, have really spoken out that much about global warming. I wrote Darcy. She said, well, it's an existential threat. It's an important thing. But there is no plan.
Does she take a stance on the coal export terminal that's planned for Bellingham? That's
no,
a massive polluter.
Neither for nor against. I think we have Darshan against it, and you said Steve Hobbs was advocating that they build that terminal. Now, that's very tempting in a rural area with no jobs. They go in with the dirty technology and offer these people jobs. But that's a dead end. We shouldn't be investing in dead-end technologies.
We review it, and we come back to the same reckoning. It's a jumble. We've got a lot of people saying a lot of things. Again, when everything is said, when things are said and done, more is said than done. But what do you want viewers to do? What exactly can happen?
I want you to look beyond the little folder that you get with your ballot, and I want you to Google the newspapers, especially early in the campaign. What do these candidates stand for? What's their history? Go to Wiki. Go to VoteSmart. Go to Ballotopedia. See where their money is coming from. And don't be afraid to elect the very best candidate. Don't elect by the polls. We can elect anyone we want if we vote our conscience.
With that, I want to thank you very much, Carol Davidic-Waller, for gracing Moral Politics again and giving us this profile on candidates and issues in Washington's new 1st Congressional District. Thank you very much.
A real pleasure, Bill.